for an asset class to contribute? Like you mentioned Bitcoin as an example. Does that have enough time to have a data series that's that can make a contribution to your models, or how long do you need?
I don't think there's a right answer to that, but I mean, it's got to be in there. I think the answer is it's got to be in there. I don't know if we have a good enough time series yet to see it go, because we haven't really seen it go through too many recessions and things like
Right.
that. I think you typically need to see multiple tightening cycles, multiple economic cycles to have a real true back test. That's why I keep it at 25 years on a trailing basis, because you're going to get a lot of that stuff in there. And so you're absolutely right, Mike. That's a great question. Like Bitcoin does not have that time series component to it. Moreover, it's a lot of the time series that it does have since 2009. It's just an adoption story. It's not a macro thing. It's an adoption story. I would argue, and we actually we start our Bitcoin back test at the beginning of 2017, because I do believe that's kind of the year where it became a real asset class as opposed to an adoption story. So that's
and when you look at that, what's the narrative that Bitcoin is non-correlated is true. A lot of things are non-correlated until the shit hits the fan. And then there are those things that are very correlated and massive drawdowns. And there are those things that are negatively correlated. And now right? Like, has Bitcoin ever been a massive protector during a massive deflationary cycle? No, I don't think we've seen any of that. We've seen bonds continue to do that. We've seen gold do that once in a while.
Yep.
Bitcoin continues to go down drastically when liquidity dries up. So it's I think we need to think about the diversification benefit of Bitcoin most of the time, but you have to recognize that it will suffer in a growth shock.
Yeah, of course. It's shocking to me that people don't acknowledge that, because
they don't. No, it's so non-correlated, right?
It makes a ton of sense when we talk about this with stocks, right? Like stocks and credit, like, oh yeah, if we have a growth shock to the downside, that's going to catalyze negative, expected returns in the equity market. But for whatever, and again, this goes back to the bubble and narratives. Like Bitcoin is a narrative-driven investment vehicle, and it's increasingly less a narrative-driven investment vehicle as more people like us adopt the asset class and start to find ways to put it into a balanced portfolio. But until that's that process will be ongoing for the next decade, and until that process concludes, i.e., it's just part of the investment universe that we're all kind of dealing with, you're going to have still a real big kind of narrative-driven component of the asset class. And this is why a lot of people, they buy the high of the Bitcoin chart and they're underwater for 3.5 years. That's happened a few times before in the last, 12 years or so.
Mm-hmm. It's just so intuitive.
Yeah.
It's so intuitive. I mean, like, do people really fly to safety towards Bitcoin? When you think about just like this is the art side of investing, right? Like
within the crypto ecosystem.
Yeah.
What's that within the crypto ecosystem? Maybe
prior
go to
to
Bitcoin versus other.
Yeah.
So, but what's interesting is this is the art versus the science, right? You don't have enough data to know what Bitcoin is going to do over many cycles. Totally. But if you just intuit, okay, what does your gut tell you about flight to safety in liquidity events? That continues to be the U.S. dollar, continues to be sovereign bonds. Maybe there'll be a shift between U dollar not being the flight to safety and treasuries and sovereign bonds, German bunds, Canadian sovereign bonds not being flight to safety. For now, that continues to be the case, right? Bitcoin continues to be a 100-ball strategy that will absolutely make you money in a positive growth shock environment.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm not so sure it's going to do that on the defensive side.
I mean, as Bitcoin evolves over the next 15 years of its life, it may evolve into an actual currency-like instrument.
That digital gold that everybody wants to.
It's potentially that's what it could do, and it could develop markets around it. But at the moment, it's not that. I think you have to be open-minded to that. This is one of the reasons I asked about how long do you need, and any new asset class presents some interesting contemplation with respect to that.